So without further ado, Emilio Gallegos.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Emilio Gallegos, United States Marine Corps veteran from San Jose, California. I joined the Marine Corps in 1999 as a reservist. In that reserve time, I did 11 years with multiple activations, some longer, some smaller. One deployment to Iraq. In 2008, I drove over an IED while on mounted patrol, driving up armored Humvee. And, one of those things where like they got me. It wasn't a prolonged firefight. It wasn't these drawn out movie scenes where like we're moving in slow mo and we're like gathering the troops and like sending stuff back down range. It's like, oh, they got me, and like there's nobody even around. Who can I point a finger at? Like you just want to shoot a weapon in the sky, like like let that aggression out. I didn't know at the time I had a fractured right fibula, so I was immediately after we collected ourselves, a few of us in the Humvee, taken across the MSR. Luckily, we were right across the MSR from a surgical center. So within about an hour or two, I had a surgery on my right leg. Whereas if we were somewhere not so close, it could have been detrimental. So I had what was called compartment syndrome in my lower right extremity. My fibula was fractured, but I didn't break through the skin or in the compound fracture. And so everything wasn't able to circulate in my limb like it should be. And if you're not close enough where you can do this thing about it, like a surgical center, it can become really detrimental, become gangrenous. You can lose your limb potentially later on. And so after about an hour and a half or 2 hours being taken to the surgical center, the doctor, she said, we're going to have to cut your leg open. I didn't really know my leg was broken until looking at pictures afterward. You can see the big bump in my leg. But I had some scars here. The radio flew out and hit my arm. And so they were sewing this together, and while there, one of the young Navy corpsmen was doing this, the doctor said we have to cut your leg open. And so they sliced my leg open from my knee to my ankle, about 11 inches, and immediately I began the process of coming back home. So that was a whole thing of leaving a situation not on your own terms, like I struggled with for a long time. So since my leg was cut open, I traveled home from Khartoum, Iraq, to Balad, Iraq, but with my leg open because my leg was so swollen I couldn't close it. And so it's what they call the fixture of Jacob's ladder or Roman sandal, because my leg was open with everything exposed, but the skin was sewn together with some plastic tubing until I got to Ramstein, and then they sewed it back together with a drainage tube because it was still really swollen. So I began my process of coming home back to Andrews Air Force Base and North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, and then coming home eventually a month later to California. All I wanted to do was see my kids. At that time, I had two children, a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old. And so just wanted to see my family, see my friends. I developed a lot of like stress and anxiety around that process of coming home as an activated reservist who attached to Second Lad out of Cherry Point, North Carolina, that nobody really knew me there. People knew me in San Jose, California. And so I came back as one person instead of a group of people, like 300, 400 Marines. So I got lost in this system for about a couple of weeks, and I was in North Carolina. I was moved around really crazily when I shouldn't have been. Some master sergeant came, pulled me out of the hospital in Cherry Point one day. I was doing fine there. I could have got the best attention I needed. Drainage tube, still bandaged up. And he just showed up out of nowhere and saying, oh, we're taking you back to Cherry Point because you're our Marine. Like, what can I say to that, But then I went to Cherry Point and I was living in an old barracks room by myself with a fresh wound. And we all know these janky barracks rooms. Like I had to drag one of those heavy cloth chairs that come with your desk into the shower, to shower, take care of myself in that sense. And it was just me. And then I had appointments at the hospital, and nobody's picking me up because nobody in the company office knows who I am or what I'm doing there, because I'm one person coming back home, not a group. Half the leadership was still in Iraq. The leadership that was here at Cherry Point didn't even know me, didn't really realize I was still there, And so I was missing appointments. I was getting really stressed, just sitting there. I would a little shop at next to the chow hall. I was hungry. I'd hobble over on my crutches to it and get some stuff, but then like carry these bags back to my room 100 yards away, like bag swinging, and then just developing all this really large amount of stress and anxiety and like anger toward I don't even know who toward, right? I can't blame these people who don't really know me, but I can because now I'm your responsibility. Like you came and you literally took me out of the hospital just to put me in a fucking barracks room and then move me around weirdly for the next week. Then they realized, oh, you should be in Wounded Warriors Battalion East back at Camp Lejeune. Like, oh, that makes sense. We'll take you back there. So some young Marines took me back there one day, packed my shit up all again after going through some just personal trauma. That whole thing is traumatic. I'm just living alone after this whole, and I'm still like not sleeping well, no medication really. I have a bag full of Percocets from Germany and like managing my own situation to the best I could. And so they took me to Wounded Warriors Battalion East. These two Marines drove me there from Cherry Point to Camp Lejeune. And I get there, it's after hours. Nobody even knows I'm coming. So nobody checked me in. Nobody knows where to go. I don't even know where this place is at. Luckily, I think there was a major who was in the hallways of a building going to the gym. And he was in PT gear and he saw us. Oh, what do you guys need? So he showed us where to go and checked in. And then I was at Wounded Warriors Battalion for like not even a day, I think. All these Marines or people that are injured, they're injured. Every wall had like railing, all the bathrooms had railing on the walls and stuff for you to use and sleep well, and you can shower fine. It's cool, made sense. And then they can manage your medication if you need it. They literally have people that cater, okay, who's appointment, scheduling, where are you gonna go? This is what you need. And then I wasn't even there for a day, and then they're like, oh, you're leaving that Wounded Warriors Battalion, you gotta go over here. And then put me in this fucking squad bay, some empty ass building on the second floor, and it's rainy season in Camp Lejeune, and the whole squad base empty except for one person on the other side who I don't know who it was, and me on this side. And I'm just here. And again, the shower and those big squad bay showers are just big flat walls, right? So I can't even stand on one leg. So what do? Again, I drag these heavy ass wooden chairs through the squad bay, through the hallways, into the shower, so I can at least do that. But again, all this stuff, I'm by myself and alone. So all these things began to I was being mismanaged, and I began to develop. Well, I just wanted to come home. Luckily my sister came to see me for a couple days, but she had to come back home right away, so she visited me. And so just a lot of these things that were really handled incorrectly, right? And I would feel the same way for other people if they were handled like I was, right? So I feel like that's where a lot of my stress and anxiety developed. And eventually I came home about a month later, not knowing, I still really don't know a lot about what could happen to you, right? Like if an explosion goes off, if I'm driving this Hummer, 2 arm lengths away from my body, an ID explodes. Like what does that reverberation do to my body 3 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later? I have no idea. Maybe there's studies now that can say that literally, but I don't personally know. So I didn't know what was going on with me. I was having not sleeping well. I kind of having nightmares, jumping out of bed, still trying to manage that, right? So I went through a lot of different therapies when I first came back home. Exposure therapy at the VA, just writing my story over and over again, until it doesn't become so effective. It's not affecting me. It's like watching a scary movie 100 times. The first time was really scary. The 100th time is not at all. So I was doing that. I got into writing, but maybe come back to school, go back to college, because I grew up an artist. And so my painting and drawing life as a young high school, middle school, elementary school turned into writing. It was very therapeutic for me. So I started taking these classes at City College locally while still trying to manage all this. I was taking Zolpidem, which is pretty much a generic form of Ambien. So I was still, and I hear all these crazy Ambien stories, which I'm glad I never had any experience with, but I was taking a lot of it, right? So, but nothing really ever worked for me. So when I got back to school, that was productive. That was emotionally productive. That was mentally productive, and gave me somewhere to put these things and these emotions, these feelings somewhere. I had a couple of great professors along the way that guided me and recommended some readings and places for me. And so I found a really love for words and English literature, specifically in junior college. I started dating someone right when I got back home, which wasn't healthy for me because I wasn't really taking care of myself. How can I take care of someone else? But the good, looking back at it now, one of the great things about that is if I would have been at home sleeping alone, I would have never known that I was shaking through the night. I was saying things. I was waking up like tremoring, sweating. But the woman that I was dating right when I came back, would tell me these things. So if there was no one with me, I wouldn't know that, which is a takeaway from that situation, right? I was still trying to be a father to an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old who didn't know me, but now didn't see me for a little bit, knew me, but now that I'm like a different me, right? There was times when, because they have different mothers, that whole process of coming home, it was hard for all of us, and it's still trauma that we still live in, that we still deal with on our own. They're 27 and 22 now, right? But at that time, sometimes their mothers would call me and say they don't want to come over today because of this and this, or like they're kind of scared of you, And so like, which I'll get to later, but my dog and I are in a documentary now about service dogs. And one of the first recordings, the first time I heard my daughter say this was on the screen to see the filming. In her interview, she said, I was really scared of my dad at that time. I was trying all these things, writing was helping, school was helping, but I was still trying to get medications. 2009, I was taking lorazepam for managing myself. I tried propranolol, which is a blood pressure medication, which they figured would make your blood pressure low. That way, when you get high blood pressure, it's even. I tried all these different things, right? I would go sometimes go to the ER just to get some Xanax. Or I'm feeling shitty. Like, oh, you feel fine? Like, well, I don't. I feel like my chest is gonna explode. Oh, here's this. And so just stop medicating, stop managing myself. Right? And so I was taking lorazepam in 2009, and what is this side effect of lorazepam? One of them was hair loss. And so I was like, oh, I'm not doing this shit at all. So I just cut it right away. But again, I was just trying different things, still trying to work a little bit, not really understanding. I was working at Trader Joe's at the time, and they were really cool, really awesome with me as a person, what I was going through. And toward the last couple of years I worked, 2011, 2013, I still wasn't sleeping well, still wasn't being productive outside of work, but they'd be really accommodating. So I would tell them, oh, I need to come hours back this day, come in later this day. Sure, no problem. Then eventually I realized that I'd be at the register at Trader Joe's on maybe a Saturday or Sunday, and I just look up and see like this horde of people with a line down every aisle. And I just would want to lay on the floor and just like be there. But I was at work, right? I'm trying to provide for my family, things I need to be productive. So it was always something that I needed to figure out that I didn't figure out yet. So finally at that time, I saw someone come in with a service dog, a couple of people. So I was inquiring about it. And finally, I stopped working because I couldn't work anymore. Like, I need to stop doing this. And I just focused on school. And then since then, I got my BA in English with a concentration in creative writing. So my BA English, concentration in creative writing, San Jose State, heavily doing a lot of poetry. In the meantime, still trying to manage myself. So 2016, from like 2012 to 2017, I stopped drinking. I stopped dating. I wasn't cussing. I was like trying to be a different person in all these different aspects. Working in the community, I was working in a church for a while. I was doing youth pastor stuff, just trying to find these things to live a productive life and to contribute, but also manage myself. Around in 2016, I started pursuing like the service dog. So I inquired, I applied to this place locally, and I went in the morning. I also went for my first time to this service dog place to just meet people and talk to them. But it also happened to be the day I got matched with my dog. So I was thinking I was just going to go check the place out, see some dogs, see how it works out. And then the lady that runs it, after our interview process, after finding out what you wanted, what you need, what you're looking for, what your condition is with things with your life, I went there that morning, and then she had a dog matched for me. She said, go get this dog from the certain kennel, bring him in. And she said, well, this is Samson. That's my dog. His name is Samson. So that was March 8th, 2016, which happened to also be the day my godson was born. So I say they have the same birthdays, And so that was a whole different entry point to a whole different part of my life. So in a few months, I'll have my dog for 8 years. And he was about maybe a year when I got him. I don't know, he was a rescue from down in Fresno, California. So from that moment on, we've been like together. And the way that program works is, before you take the dog home, they ask you to commit this program to 48 consecutive weeks of training, at least twice a week. But if you have times where you step back, you can't come in, then they work with you. So it took us about a year and a half. Before you take the dog home, you have to come to class. Because when you leave class, you give the dog back. They keep them there because they board. They have all the dogs there. So when you get there, you ask for your dog. They bring your dog after class. But that place is open 24 hours. So if I needed my dog in the middle of the night and I'm here and I didn't have him home yet, I can go there and say, can I see my dog for a while? And so it's always open. Even right now, someone's always there. And I wouldn't say probably my first real pet as an adult, I had a few dogs growing up, but nothing to this, like a whole nother commitment and relationship, even going to the restroom, like, okay, well, I gotta use the restroom, what I do? Like, what do I leave my dog? Like, you take him with you, So it definitely, there's been transition periods. It's not easy. It's a commitment. It's not a light commitment because since he was a rescue and I, in a sense, was a rescue or still am a fucking rescue, probably, like we're trying to rescue each other. And so it just became this whole process of growing together, learning each other, what we do and what we don't. But also in that same process, like I talked about the documentary we're in now, my dog has taught me that I'm still very capable of receiving love and I'm still very capable of giving love. Because there's a lot of times in our lives where what we've gone through, what we've been through, what we see, what we turn into, we pull away from that, whether it be love from family members, love from a significant other, love from a community, love in every different form. Like we push away from it, we push it away, we shy away from it. And then we can come to a place where everything's really dark. Everything's really monotone. Nothing's really exciting. We're not getting the good chemicals we need, like the dopamine, the serotonin, and stuff like that. And so when the dog comes into your life, he doesn't care about the shitty person you were for the first 6 hours of the day. He cares about like what's in front of him at this, or him or her, what's in front of him or her right now. Right? He doesn't care that you were just a jerk to him 10 minutes ago. Like, okay, that's cool, but not really. But I still love you. I still care about you. Like, let's play, let's do this. And so it becomes this process where you don't have to come beat yourself up about things, and maybe you'll grow and learn and move in a positive direction. It's easy to become just pulled away and like not really care about that. So it's good to love someone and love something in that sense. So he's done that for me, but also he has become this conduit into me just jumping back into like society. So he's become this talking point and this conduit and this thing because I got to go out, take him outside. He's with me in the gym every day. He graduated with me twice. Everywhere I go, he's there, right? So he's a talking point and he's an entry point for people to begin to build relationships. We start talking about pain and trauma and loss and life, and then the next week the same person's like, "Oh, how are you today?" So then these layers have to be peeled away between two individuals who just didn't know each other a month ago, but I've seen these people for weeks and months on end at the gym or at school or in my community, but now we're talking about things and we're talking about life and we're finding these parallels and we're building these relationships. But the entry point to this, where these places go and they're still going, where they end up, is the dog. If my dog isn't with me everywhere I go, I'd just be some bald guy with a lot of tattoos and nobody really wants to talk to me, right? But he's the entry point, and so he creates these relationships. And so, like I say, like my gym, I'm there 6 days a week or so, multiple hours. That's like a second home to me. I do a lot of work there. I think there a lot. I write a lot there. I take notes. And so I spend hours there because I think that's the place I'm most productive creatively. I'm there and I'm talking about life, talking about trauma. I'm not just giving them, hey bro, good morning, or hey, how you doing? Good. Good to see you. Like, oh, it has to be. It has to be. How are you today? Today's been a horrible day. Today's been fucked up. Because if I want this place to be a home, I gotta treat it as a home. If I want people to love me and care about me, I need to give them the best opportunities to love and care about me. And so I have to give them these entry points. Like, I'm not just this hardened guy who doesn't have feelings. This is who I really am. And that's how you start building relationships like that. Like I said, it goes back to my dog is the entry point to where these places are now. If it wasn't for my dog, those deeper, lengthier, more meaningful conversations wouldn't happen. Whether it be the coffee shop I go to all the time, the gym or school, come to care about you because I'm opening up. But the opening up point, it comes back to the dog like every single time. I can't stress that enough. And so he's been really important to me to grow and to converse with people. A lot of times it's helping other people deal with like their personal traumas, losses, And so it gives me, he's given me like stronger reasons for existing in a sense, right? Loving you, being there for you. It also has taught me that because my situation in Iraq was shitty, and I know where the way that I became hard, I believe, was like just cutting people off emotionally and not caring about people or not wanting to care, not trusting people, right? And so now later on down the road, I have no reason to not trust this animal, right? He's never done anything to me. Like, so I don't have no reason to place any of that on him. And so I can begin to slowly build trust and love with something, and that can transfer, or this, this animal, and it can transfer to just the way my body reacts to moments where I'm gonna have to trust and love people. I've come to this point where I'm doing less fighting and more flighting, that I'm living and I'm not just existing. And so my dog has given me so much in return. And then you want to show up for these things, right? You want to show up for these people, show up for him. He's always happy to see me. Like, he's happy to get out in the world. So that's been a big positive for for my life is, right? But it's also provided this awesome platform. Like I said, what we're in this movie, this documentary, it's been very cathartic, the whole process for my children, my family, and I, because they've lived that life with me. Like, my trauma has became their trauma. But this whole situation, you can't help but notice this dog is here now. So one, this is a greater commitment to helping fix myself or make myself better, because it's a big commitment, but also it's a visual representation of the people that love you most. It's helping them feel comfortable because they can see you become a different person or change a different person. But you're trying, not just trying behind closed doors. I'm trying everywhere and every place I go, because now this is a visual representation of me trying. Right? This is a big thing. It's a big step. Like, everywhere I go, he's with me. Right? If I go to a bar, not busy bar, because he doesn't like busyness, and I really don't like busyness that much either. But places where he's not gonna want to go, I probably won't go either, because it's respecting relationship. Like, we got to figure it out. So if he doesn't like to go somewhere and I know it's going to bother him, it's probably going to bother me. So I'm considering someone else, considering someone else's feelings. So it's relationship building, and it's teaching me again that trusting and loving someone and considering someone else is a thing that can be productive, that can be healthy. And so yes, it's with my dog. I'm considering his thoughts and his emotions and his feelings going to this place possibly. So in turn, later on down the road, I can commit to those relationships. I can understand. And so, like I said, he's become just really a positive place for me to return to continually, a place for me to laughing, playing, talking to someone. I live alone. So if nothing goes on in this apartment for 14 hours and I don't speak a word and nothing plays on the TV or music wise, then it's 14 hours of quietness. But I'll talk to him in between. So, it's easy. It would just be me and myself, but it's not. It's us. So he's there for me to to not be alone in that sense, physically, but also like mentally. I'm talking to someone the other day. He hears me recite a lot of my poetry a lot, so he probably knows a lot of that by heart as well. But it's just, again, he's provided this great opportunity to teach myself that it's okay to trust someone again. It's okay to let your guard down and believe truly that someone or something has like your best interest in mind, and not hold something over their head. And so it's helping me as a 46-year-old man still progress as far as like interacting with humans. I've learned that most of your growth doesn't come by yourself. We're communal beings. Like, we're humans. We were born and made to like live in these different communities and exist with people. And so he's kind of, like I said, he's been that conduit into more relationships and more people, acquaintances, big or small, long or short, finding their way into my lives. And so that's like irreplaceable. He's just doing what he does, just existing and being that. So it's really a beautiful thing in that sense to know that he just wants to have fun and be, you know, amongst more than just me, because I could stay in this apartment probably a long time, just hours writing or reading and doing some stuff of my own, trying to be productive, but also I want to say hermit like, but like I know he has to go outside or he wants to go outside, so I'm considering him. You're right, we've been in here for too long, Or if I'm driving, I'll cuss on the freeway or get mad at someone. And I know as soon as I look at him, he's like looking at me like, bro, really? But if it was just me in the car, there wouldn't be that visual reminder that, well, why am I doing that? You know what I mean? I never feel alone because I'm always with him and I'm always looking out for him. That's also another level of companionship. He's not going to tell me I have to use the restroom. He's not going to tell me I'm hungry. He's not going to tell me like, oh, there's this obstacle in front of us. Like I need to figure that out you know, and then guide us through whatever it is. When we're home, we're just chilling, hanging out. But once we go out the door, like, okay, now let's take on the world
Yeah.
together.
So if you could give, say, the general public one piece of advice on, they see you, they see your dog, what's one thing that you would want them to know?
I think it always goes back to knowing, like, you have to find out if it's okay for you to interact with someone else's dog, right? Before you even don't start interacting with them, like waving at them, before you even know who this person is, or distracting them. Because, like I said, I may look like I'm just normal and whatever since, and we're sitting at the gym or at a restaurant, and you're like waving at this dog, and maybe he's gonna react because he's a dog. Ears will come up, maybe tail will move, and then I'm like, I can feel that wherever he's at, because every movement he makes, I feel. And I'm like, oh, what's going on with him? And I'm reacting to him. But also, you don't know if your interaction before we even say it's okay, right? If he's monitoring my blood pressure, monitoring my anxiety levels, that few moments that you have can potentially take the dog away from his job, which is taking care of me, right? And so there has to be that just a conversation like, is it okay? Can I say hi to your dog or ask about the dog? Before there's interaction, there has to be that. But also you have to be okay with someone saying you can't or no, and that's okay too. It just comes with vocalization. Communication is big. So I think as far as what someone would or should know is that you have to converse with the owner first before you converse with. It's easy to get drawn into a dog, right? Waving to them or like trying to be cute with them. But then because then it puts me like in a bad mood, like I get irritated. I know you don't know better, you should know better, but now I don't want to talk to you at all really. I mean, the therapy that I needed or the remedy I needed, it wasn't drugs or other types of therapies. Tried a lot of them. I think it's being real and vulnerable with yourself and really truthfully asking what you need. Everything I want in my life isn't always what I need. And so after trying a lot of things that I think I wanted in my life, dating, being like promiscuous in a sense, drinking, taking different medications, thinking that'll help me, like I needed something different. Until you come to the place where you're accepting like what you really need, then you're not gonna be able to grow and continue to be the best version of yourself. Right. But that takes vulnerability. That takes admitting that like, oh, I don't have my shit all together. I pretended for way too long. And I've kind of duct taped this thing to death. And I need to find another way to like sail the ship, right? Um, and so it becomes a point where you need to be 100% truthful, but it takes really understanding yourself and being truthful to what will be the best remedy for you. Because everything, like I said, what we think is best for us, a lot of times isn't the best for us. One of the things my daughter says in documentary is like, I'm happier, I smile more. There was a time in their life that was really dark for my children. They saw me as a different person, and literally, they were literally scared of me. Right? but for them to see me grow, to be happy again, to smile a lot more than I used to, that says a lot. As far as, my intention wasn't going in like this dog's gonna make me smile more, right? But he has changed the affect of who I am and what I give off, the energy I have. So I think that's the biggest thing is he's helped me become more consistently a loving and caring person.